happy Scotty Terrier. And her husband went around for weeks beforehand because he had a drink problem, she had the money, and she told the bank they were only to give him £20 a day. And he went around telling everybody for weeks, I'm going to burn my wife to death. Now, I was the first officer at the scene. I went into the house, which had flames coming 40 foot out of the roof. I saw the fire brigade try to get into the room that she was in. They couldn't, the door was locked, there was no key in the lock. She's wheelchair bound and in the far corner of the room. She didn't have the key. The fireman had to go out and get a short ladder and use it as a battering ram to break the door down. I went into the room with the fire brigade. They were squirting their hoses. I saw her, not very pretty sight, having fallen through the burnt rubber of her wheelchair. And she was there. At which point the home beat officer came up to me and said to me, Albert, Rosemary Ford her name was, very brilliant home beat officer. She said to me, go to the end of the road, you'll see a blue Ford Escort coming up the road, find out who's in it. If it's her husband, arrest him on suspicion of murder. Right down the road, 5 minutes later, up comes a blue Ford Escort, 2 blokes in it. One of them was her husband. Right, you're coming with me, old son, you're mine. I then let them know that I've got him. I want transport to come and collect him. While we're there, he's crying, my wife, my wife, my wife. Not a tear in sight. Now, I know my wife actually drives me crazy on occasions. And we would, all of us fellas, wouldn't we, like to throttle them on occasions? Wouldn't that feel good? Yeah? But I love her to pieces, and if she was burnt to death, I would be devastated. Absolutely devastated, and believe me, there would be tears. Don't tell her I said that, I shall deny it. All right? But there would be. And there were no tears. And so 2 detectives come along, so I've done what they call de-arresting him, and then they have re-arrested him. And then I've gone back to the house. And several people came up to me and said, officer, we'd like to tell you that this man told us personally that he was going to burn his wife to death. And I've collected all their names and phone numbers and their addresses on a piece of paper. And I saw the inspector, and the inspector said to me, because the little dog was dead, he said, I've arranged for the council to come and take the dog. And I said, no, we don't want that. We want the dog to be posted, surely. We want to find out why the dog died. She was in the living room, that side of the house. The dog was in the bedroom, that side of the house. The dog was dead. There's very little smoke damage in the bedroom. There's practically no smoke damage in the passage because it was a very good fire door in the living room. And it's kept all of the fire into the living room. There was some damage where it started to burn through the door into the passage, but basically not a lot. The inspector said, no, I've arranged for the council to come and collect it. I said, no, we don't want to do that. We want a post-mortem on that dog. We want to find why it died. It's a very yappy little dog. Why didn't it notify everybody within a 5-mile radius by its barking that something was drastically wrong? He said, give it to the council, that's an order. So the council came and took the dog away. And I said to him, right, when I get back down the police station, I've completed my pocketbook entries here. I'll get down to the police station, I will do an incident report book and a 991 statement. And he said, I don't want anything from you on paper. I don't want anything from you at all on paper. So I went back down to the police station anyway, and I filled out my incident report book, and I did my 991 statement. And I said, here they are. And he said, I don't want them. Throw them away. I don't want them. So I put them in my locker. 10 months later, it went to court. 2 detectives stood up in court. One of them stood up in court, and he said, on day, date, time and place, I was on duty in full uniform when I saw a man I now know as, and I arrested him, and the man was freaking out in the dock, and he's saying, you lying bastard, it wasn't you. It was some special constable called Albert that arrested me. And the judge grabs for the papers, and where am I? I'm not there. So I get sent down a statement form to fill in. On day 8, time and place, I was on duty in full uniform. I attended the scene of a fire. I saw some people, but I have no further recollection of what happened. Sign here, please. I ripped it up. I went to my locker. I produced a photocopy of my pocketbook. I produced an incident report book written at the time or shortly after the time, and a 991 statement written shortly after the time. Here's my evidence. The man was not convicted of murder. Why wasn't he convicted of murder? 2 reasons. Firstly, because they left me out of the case. And yet, anybody with more than half a brain would know I was essential to the case. I'm the first officer there. I've gone into the building with the fire brigade. I have seen them break through the door. I have gone down the road at the request of the local home beat officer, and I have arrested the main suspect. I have to be in the case. But I wasn't. Why? Because of an idiot inspector. And that is what happens. The fire brigade forensic people said they couldn't produce evidence of arson. The Metropolitan Police forensic people said they could. So the Crown Prosecution Service said, because of the disparity between the 2 forensic services and because of the fact this Special Constable was written out of the case when he shouldn't have been, we're going to drop the case. The man got what he wanted. He'd killed his wife. He's not been found guilty of her murder, so he inherits all of her money. The only thing I hope is he drunk himself to death in short order. Racism in the police force, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What I am saying, I have never, ever seen it. Sexism in the police force, not saying it doesn't exist. I have never, ever seen it. And on the rare occasions when I have seen racism, it's normally been a black police officer against a different type of black. I've never seen it with white police officers. I've never seen it sexism with white police officers. They treat the girls in the police station with respect. They treat them nicely. It's the black police officers who walk up, as one did called Perry, walked up to an inspector, a female inspector who'd asked to see him, and he walked up to her and he said, "Who loves your baby? Crunch." And she just said, "In my office." That was it. I mean, she should have floored him really, but I mean, in my office. So basically, racism, not responsible for the Lawrence problem. Stupidity, definitely. It happens. And it's our job as members of the public to see the police force are not allowed to be stupid. They're not allowed to do that sort of thing. They have got to actually stand up and actually do the job the way it is supposed to be done. Right, I think that's about it, really. How are we doing? Any questions? Yes?
What have you got to say about Section 44 of the Terrorism Act?
Well, I think the Anti-Terrorism Act, A, is probably unnecessary. There's a lot of acts that are unnecessary. The Race Relations Act is completely unnecessary. You know, if I throw a brick through a black man's window because he's black, they deal with that under the Race Relations Act. If I throw a brick through a black man's window, that's criminal damage. The fact I've thrown it through his window because he is black, that aggravates the criminal damage. The English law, the ordinary English law, dealt with it nicely, thank you very much. There was no need for any other law. All the Race Relations Act has done is made an awful lot of people frightened to upset an awful lot of other people. And that shouldn't be the case.
The Terrorism Act Section 44 is used as a catch-all now to overthrow case.
Well, no, I understand that. I understand that. And I think that the anti-terrorism laws are being used in a manner for which they were not designed, or shouldn't have been designed. I suspect with this government they were, but they should not have been designed for that. But I also think that you have to blame not the Anti-Terrorism Act, but the individual policeman who uses it. Because the individual policeman who uses it should be sufficiently well aware of what his job is, which is